lot of things that I think they wanted to say that I was waiting on them to say, but they didn't, so to speak, say. So I think I might say a little bit of it.
The talent is there now, they don't show the talent.
Isaiah Taylor, leader of the Bahamian, and I helped to revolutionize the Bahamian music. I was a part of it in a big way.
Dylan McKenzie, otherwise known as D-Mac, and we're in the studio with him. We're going to talk a little bit about his experience in this industry here in the Bahamas and how it's grown over the past 20 years. Dylan, tell us a little bit about, what got you into the music and why you started.
For me, music, basically, I started from in the home, Christian parents growing up in church, learning some keyboard chords from my brother. From then, family devotions, going in on a Sunday, playing keyboards and stuff, going into church, playing for the what you would call Sunday school, and then eventually into the youth choir, evolving with my talent and my talent moving on, and then gradually going into playing for like the big choirs and all the churches and stuff.
Yes, Bahama Don Dada, you don't know, that's the name. Mobile them crew, that's the team, you don't know. Alright, go.
Oh yeah, this overdose up. You see? Mobile them crew for sure. We live.
Yeah, Bigger T. You know how we used to do it. Flush it!
All right, so Biggity, tell us a little bit about Mabaitam and how long Mabaitam has been doing music here in the Bahamas.
Well, we've been in the game now for almost 20 years, like 17. And basically, we are the originators of a Bahamian genre we call Mado music, which is basically Bahamian dialect over Bahamian rhythms and foreign rhythms. We try to make sure everything we do, we have we involve our culture in it, Bahamian culture that is. So, by then we represent every Bahamian individual because all us is Mabayam. All us had that name for me was babies, Mabay. So, you represent
I will never die, this my testimony. I Bigger T, testify. Food and gas, sky high, hustling to get by. They got me funding the war, and that's why I prophesy. My lights out, tell the government reconnect my supply.
In the Bahamas, we know because we are the epitome of trapping. Smugglers we are, responsible for getting it all the way to y'all.
Been a part of the rock group called Mabaitam back in the day. Worked my way into radio. Started with 184. The little thing with Tans saying and the crew, Africa, you know about that. Something we did for the Tans. Was then hired by 100 Jams.
What defines Bahamian culture?
Well, number one, just being born here. Our accent. That's Bahamian culture. People think Bahamian music has to be break and scrape, which I don't think it does. Once you're a Bahamian, it's Bahamian music, no matter what genre you're pursuing.
My name is Oswald Bowe. I've been in the music business here in the Bahamas since 1988. I finished College of the Bahamas, and I ended up working at the world famous Compass Point Recording Studios. And there I met many of the world's greatest artists, and I got to work hand in hand with them.
It's funny that, you said a Bahamian hip-hop and reggae artist because ain't nobody know yet, but I just do rake and scrape. Feels good to do it too. I like to look at myself as just a Bahamian artist, musician, songwriter. I've been doing it since 1995.
Irish lady, a Bahamian father. I was born here, and raised here, grew up here. Learned the streets here, learned a lot of things here. Ended up going to the States, which is typically what most during the teenage years would do, looking for school and all that. I'm a music producer, I'm a songwriter, father of two. Just all around no BS type of guy, you know what I mean? Very headstrong, very passionate about the music.
I started out dancing.
Dancing, okay.
Yeah, I entered the public domain as a dancer for Therese Hepburn, God rest her soul. And that's my humble beginnings. And then I joined Extra. I remember the conversation I had with her when she said, you probably won't be able to dance for me as often.
I started recording Bahamians in my studio in Atlanta after moving around and following the trends of urban music from a 4-year stint in LA, a 2-year stint in New York, where I got my record deals. I went home for a while, and then I decided to build a studio, moved to Atlanta, and I built a studio down there. In fact, that was the third time I went to Atlanta, and we had a studio in Smyrna, recording people from all over. And I started recording the Bahamians, and one Bahamian, Samantha Love, introduced me to this music. I was sitting in the studio, and she pulls this cassette out, and it's playing this music, and I'm like, what's that? And she said, Junkanoo. I said, Junka what? She said, Junkanoo, and I say, well, what really? What? So I put it on the, because she had on a small thing, I put it on the system, and that was it. I was enchanted.
Well, I've been a quote-unquote full-time musician since 1982. When I was a member of then High Voltage Band, which evolved into being Bahamian. As most people know, the new Bahamian is the Who Let the Dogs Out crew. But I'm a founding member of the original Bahamian. So I became a full-time musician in 1982. I've been a musician all my life because I've been involved in playing music somewhere from a child, but quote-unquote professional musician from 1982, and I've been involved in the fight for the preservation of the true Bahamian sound, and also I've been a producer of a number of the local artists that are around, so it's safe to say that I've pretty much been involved.
I am the eldest of 4 children of the former Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Sir Lyndon Pinling. I'm married with 4 children. I'm an attorney by profession. I guess some people say a musician by profession as well, but it's actually my hobby, and I've been doing it ever since I was 8 years old. So I'm quite relaxed and quite happy when I perform and when I play. It's all I've been doing since I was a kid.
Who let the loose? Cause I'm hanging them out there and it's so easy. The road foolproof. See, I'm a loose goose. So when you take your best shot at me,
there really ain't a lot of things that we stick to and force it to be our culture and make it stay that way. So people don't really know what to hold on to and to take with them. Like I was just having a conversation today with the fact that people sell a lot of shirts that says Hey Man downtown. Like I don't remember Hey Man being a Bahamian saying.
Check it out, man. Big shots coming out to Ducky, holding it down right about now as the Fat 8 at 8 continues. Ducky featuring So Serious. Homegrown Flavor as 100 continues to jam.
My passion is for the Bahamian traditional music.
And what is that? Define that for me, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
Traditional is, it would be defined as the culture, and your culture should display who you are. It should tell who you are. So the music that I talk about is our rake and scrape. It's our Junkanoo music. It's the calypso music that we produce here locally in the Bahamas. But I also do all different genres, which would be reggae, it would be rap, hip hop, whatever, that type of stuff. I would do all that.
The true Bahamian sound. What is that?
And I think this is where we're gonna have the deepest part of the discussion, because I am one of the persons who believe that culture first, and its definition is everything that you are and do in a specific location. And there is a specific sound or specific sounds that define us as Bahamian. I am not one of the persons who believe that anything that's done by a Bahamian is considered Bahamian music. Because if that argument follows, then anything that's done by a Jamaican is Jamaican music, and they wouldn't allow you to carry that argument forward because their music is reggae. So I'm one of the persons who fight for the preservation, at least if only for the purpose of documentation of an understanding that our music is either Rake and Scrape or Jam Canoe, and we do have a level of folk music as well. So
I love Bahamian music. First off, you know, I grew up on it. Excuse me. I grew up on it. A lot of what I've been through in my life relates to those type of songs. But this is a new era, and I came up in a more modern era as far as what we were exposed to, what I exposed myself to in my travels to the United States, and me living in the United States. I've always been a fan of, you know, rap music, you know what I mean? So I just think that my fascination for hip hop, you know, kind of outshined, you know what I mean, my willingness to want to even do Rake and Scrape, you know what I'm saying, or what we call indigenous Bahamian music, which by the way is kind of far-fetched, you know, to me, because if you would say it was indigenous Bahamian music, then that would mean folklore songs. You understand what I'm saying? That would mean slave songs, you know what I mean? And that would be indigenous to me. Or unless they could find songs written by the Indians that were there before them, then that would be indigenous Bahamian music to me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, a lot of guys would say, you know, that the scrubbing board and, you know, the harmonica, for Christ's sake, where did the harmonica come from? Like, who did that? You know what I mean? And you know, shout out to Fred Ferguson, whatever. You know, Dylan, these are all guys that I respect. Ronnie Butler, these are all guys that I respect. However, you cannot call this indigenous Bahamian music unless it's indigenous. And I'm sorry, but the harmonica is not, the trumpet is not, even down to the goat skin drum. I'm sorry, it's really not, you know, the design of it, even, you know, you know, with the goat skin and the tin drum and all that, even the sound of that alone is you know, quote unquote, not indigenous. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I feel differently about it.
If you are a Bahamian and you make music, that doesn't necessarily make it Bahamian music, and it may be Bahamian made music.
The debate started. You know, what is Bahamian music? And it still rages on today. We are all, don't care where in the world we live, we're products of our environment. Being here in the Bahamas and being so close to the United States, ever since I was a boy, we were heavily influenced by soul music, R&B music, which we still are today, okay? The young people are recording it, but they're doing it in today's style, hip-hop, rap, all that young stuff. But when we were growing up, we grew up in the funk era, okay? The heavy soul, the heavy R&B, funk grooves and everything. And so today, if you're a band or you record a song with, you know, an old school funk groove, they don't consider that quote-unquote foreign music because, you know, we grew up with that type of stuff back in the day. But if you start playing soca or reggae, which are rhythms from our neighbor countries and as transcribed and interpreted from the motherland over to this side of the world, it starts off a hell of a debate.
And why is that?
I have no idea. People consider it quote-unquote foreign, but you can play American music and it's acceptable, okay? Go figure. But you know, we live in a free country, we live in a democratic country, so you're free to think what you like and express what you like.
You have to know and be able to appreciate who you are, your music, your traditional indigenous music, and then be able to infuse that. Just take an example right now, I'm doing a track right now, which is reggae and Rake and Scrape influenced. The only way that that's going to work, everybody's saying, wow, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But the only way that it can work is you have to have knowledge of both genres and how they, what's the makeup of this particular style of music and that particular style of music, and be able to fuse them together. It's like making a cake. You know, you can make carrot cake. Carrot cake has its ingredients. But you could put some lemon in it and put your own twist to it, and that would make a little lemony, zesty kind of taste to add a zesty kind of taste to your carrot cake. It changes it, but the basics of it is still that it's carrot cake. And I feel the same way about music when you're building things. Reggae has its formula, it has its way, it has certain instruments, and there is a certain way that it is played. The ska, the different types of reggae that's being played, all of those have their particular different styles. It's the same thing for Rake and Scrape music, it has a style. So in order for us to be able to move and make things different, we need to be able to incorporate what we have locally.
What particular instrument do you have to have in your product as a Bahamian to classify your product as the Bahamian sound or a Bahamian product musically?
I guess that drop back on culture and defining culture.
So what is the culture?
Culture is whatever is naturally available to you. That's where we got a lot of the sounds from, because Rake and Scrape is derived from that square dance, that country music. But the sound kind of took on a new element by the instruments that they had available to them at the time, which was culturally available. The goat skin drum, and you had they used to use the washboard or a saw and a piece of metal to scrape it with. The iron tubs to create that bass in the drum. They play it on whatever, and that kind of created that was the birth of the sound of Rake and Scrape. That the movement from it being country or square dance music to it being Rake and Scrape. So that's what you would need in your music now, is the something that either mimics the sound or that gives you the sound, or use the actual instrument that provides a similar sound to what was used when it was birthed, and we gave birth to Rake and Scrape, in my opinion.
So let's fast forward. Now you found this music, you liked it, you came to the Bahamas, you experienced
it. It was
it.
the whole culture. You could hear it in the music. It wasn't just the music itself. The persona that jumped out of the music was something that, if you were any bit of a music historian, which I am quite a bit of, it piqued your curiosity. What really is going on here? How could I have been in the music field for 40 years and 90 miles away from the United States? There was this music that I had never heard of.
Oh, okay.
And the first thing that came to my mind is, why is this music so great and nobody knows anything about it? Somebody is asleep at the wheel.
What do you think is the authentic sound of Bahamian music?
I would have to say the John Canoe Rake and Scrape sound.
Is that a collective, or is that two separate things?
I would call it collective, but it can be known as separate because they both carry two different type of rhythm.
Okay.
The John Canoe is more upbeat, whereas the Rake and Scrape can be toned down, slowed down, and played in different manners. I would say that's our traditional sound of the Bahamas.
We don't necessarily push who we are at the world, and I think that's where we fault a lot of times. It's to the point where I feel like Junkanoo, Rake and Scrape, a lot of those kind of musics are the ones that really show our Bahamian culture, and I guess express who we are, what we do, how we do what we do, all those other things or whatever. And I still think that we don't, even outside of the music part of it, we don't push who we are at the world. Like, if you ask somebody how to talk like an Englishman, or how do Englishmen talk, you could in a heartbeat, yo cheerio old chap, or however they talk, you say, okay, how about a Jamaican? You go with a rascal or whatever it is they say, or whatever. I don't even know what that means. It's hopefully nothing bad. But when you say, how does a Bahamian talk, that universally or internationally or whatever's known by the world, what is a Bahamian saying that's went like global?
And we ain't even trying to expand off of the originality that we have. No one even know, but it, we hold them in the corner. Hey God, you come back, right? It's like, see what we have. You know what I mean? Just like inside the Bible, the fable, which I say in the tale, but the who God give the talents to,
Yeah.
Want to get $10, want to get whatever talents. It's like we used to set, who God talking about now, who holding the talent down, and wait until he come back to say, see, Rach, I bury it, man. You know what I mean? I don't want none of it. You see what I'm saying?
Serious thing.
If we don't change now, we need a rebirth of the Bahamian ego dread. Real talk. If we don't change it now, what we can do? We can be ground into dust, dog. Look here, it's trickling down to our economy and all, dog. Look who in power. When these foreigners killing us island with flicking this and that, merchandise and this and that, we ain't even getting no hands inside it. We used to wake us.
But the Bahamas is the only country in the whole entire world which don't sell culture. And culture is what keeps the Jamaican economy going, you know. Foreigners, Japanese and Europeans, you know, they buy into that. And that keep their country going. I don't know how long our government in the Bahamas will actually, you know, think we could sell sun and sea. At least probably until Cuba open up the rest of the world, you know, where anybody could go there. But I could tell you, we failing.
So is the onus, is it on the government to change, or is it on the people? Because the people control the government.
The government, it ain't the government. It's not the government.
It's not the government.
The government taking advantage of the misfortunate people.
Yeah, that the people ain't know.
The power they in.
Hey, if you go to a place like Mississippi or Louisiana or anywhere you find, you know, something even as simple as somebody say, oh, I spot Bigfoot in the bush right over here. You go in there, you go in the area, guess what? You can find the people selling you Bigfoot t-shirt, hat, everything. You understand, with Bigfoot on it, because to them, hey, that's their culture then. That becomes their culture, you understand me?
Folklore.
Yeah, they sell that. The Bahamas is the only place where Bahamians only trying to be other people.
Yeah.
You know, imitating so much till they ain't even know who they is.
One of the problems we have in the Bahamas, we don't speak in that one voice to say our music from our country is, and whatever it is.
Yes, I've definitely heard that over the past few interviews. My other question then is, do you think that you get the support you need from the government? Because I keep hearing the word government, but I don't hear any resolves.
I was in a conversation just this morning, and I had no control over it, but I am grateful that I was born in the period that I was born in, because I was able to grow and recognize the change from one era to another, the change when entertainment was important in the Bahamas. And a number of our leaders are younger than I am, and they would not have come through that. So we have developed in our country cultural foreigners. We have people who are Bahamians who have birthright here, but they have no connection culturally to the Bahamas. So if I am to define it, I'll call them cultural foreigners. And a number of our leaders, they fall in that category. So if they don't know it, then the things that they are going to promote are the things that they've grown up recognizing. So, you know, we're kind of hoping that they would at least call in the practitioners or those of us who are trying so hard to preserve this thing that we call Bahamian. Document it, do whatever is necessary to make sure it becomes recognized. I mean, Joseph Spence, for example, worldwide guitar player, is recognized everywhere in the world except in the Bahamas. Tony McKay, you know, we just had the big controversy about Sidney Poitier, because no one in the Bahamas really knows the history of what this man has done. We have done a very poor job in documenting and disseminating all the information that's necessary to make us proud to be cultural Bahamians. And that, I think, the leaders are, you know, some of them are lost as well. They don't have the knowledge. So I don't know where we go from there.
See, Nassau night, sipping yak, Ducky, yeah, go weave, massive max, and I bless the track just to
Bang and Robert.
So tell us about the change in Bahamian music and the influence, because you're a big part of the change in Bahamian music. When you came in, a lot of artists started migrating to the American culture of hip hop. So tell us about, you know, that experience.
Well, there's a couple different brands of hip hop, but we like to rap with our native tongue. You know, when I say we, you know, I talking about the Maboydem crew. You know, there's a lot of us that like to rap with our native tongue. We got some people that emulate or more, I guess, heavily influenced by the U.S. But we realize, listen, if we could be rapping, we need to do us. You know what I mean? We need to speak the way we speak. We need to keep it real with ourselves. So, you know, I don't mind if you sound like an American, African, Haitian, Jamaican, whomever, when you rap, that's your preference, all right? We prefer to use our native tongue, all right, when we rap. But hip-hop in the Bahamas has come a long way. And I mean, you know, hip-hop has evolved in general, you know, has come a long way. But in the Bahamas, I'd have to say that I'm pretty happy with the progress that we have made as a country when it comes to hip-hop. You know, we still got, just like most places, the best rappers are underground and not on the radio. You know, we got a couple of radio cats that's doing real good and they got a lot of skills. We got Ducky, you know, we still got people like Overdose to them and Maboydem crew that doing some good stuff, but you know, they ain't tailored for the radio, so to speak, you know what I mean? So, you know, and that's where you find most like the real hip-hop, the best hip-hop, you know, no disrespect to the cats that's making it on the radio, but, you know, that's a fact, you know, you find most of the skilled rappers who really into the culture itself, you know, not finding their way on the radio.
So do you not feel that as an artist, you should at least infuse some type of gumbe or rake and scrape sound into your music to kind of identify who you are culturally?
Yeah, I guess you can. I have some songs that have the Junkanu drum in there, the goatskin drums. It's blended so well though that someone wouldn't be able to pick it up easily. So, but I don't think it necessarily defines you as whether you're a Bahamian artist or not.
Just from my point of view, I seriously don't think that we push our culture like we should. So it'll never, so to speak, work the way that most people that want it work in their mind see it. I don't think it's gonna work that way unless some people actually come together all and make some sense about this.
Let's go back a little bit and tell us about the birth of the Bahamian and the transition from being a homegrown act to being an international sensation.
All right. Well, we were a homegrown act until actually 92. When we did Back to the Island and they released that, that's when the name started moving. We did that song, that CD, I believe that it was called Back to the Island. The second one was Kalik. The third one might have been I Like What I Like, I'm not sure, but we were moving after that. But when we did Who Let the Dogs Out back in 2000, it put us over the top. It spread like wildfire worldwide.
Every Caribbean country in this region is trying to market their music internationally so that's acceptable to the wider world. Okay? You mentioned Trinidad. Trinidad is no different to the Bahamas. I can tell you that all of the Trinidadian artists, the main ones, the upcoming ones, and those who are not so up and coming and they're still new, everybody's trying to get that big break to get their music out to the wider world. And you find that many of even those artists, okay, their music is starting to sound a little bit more like the Western club house music, whatever you hear in the clubs now, and kind of watering it down to be more internationally palatable. And unfortunately, it's just a fact of life.
And when I talk about infusing stuff, I talk about knowing what the foundation is and then adding what we have to it. And it doesn't mean that it has to be played just the raw way that it's in its raw form. Because I honestly don't think Rake and Scrape in its raw form can be internationally accepted. Please.
Okay. So that brings me to marketable goods.
Then you're not bringing that. Let me rewind back so I can make sure that you all know what I mean by that. Our music is in the category of world music. World music, of course, we know soca, reggae, all of those are categorized as world music. We know that. Then the style that we use, the way that we sing it, what we do is we tell stories. So that makes our music become folk music. Folk music has its genre, it has its place in the world. But the persons that would listen and that would go ahead and purchase folk music is not a very huge number of persons. So that's why I said in its raw form, in the folk music form, it may not be able to get out there and be accepted because people cannot relate to it.
So how do you make indigenous Bahamian music marketable in a digital era?
Easy. Stop digging in your book. Everybody knows about songwriting. It's your lyrical content. You have to change the lyrical content. If you want people to know about, we have to know what we're talking about. Everything in this age, soca music talks about. They celebrate carnival. They talk about the fat, the whining, the jumping, the dancing, the gyrating, and all of that. We need to come to a point where the lyrics have to change. The lyrics have to change. And then not only that, there has to be something identifiable also as well.
Reasons why like genres like hip hop are popular is because there's this don't care attitude to doing the music. You just want to go with what feels good and what sounds good. Sometimes I think they get too buried in making everything correct. Now, bear in mind that you do want to have people singing in tune. You don't have the track, in one key and the vocalist in the other key. But there's a comfortable realm that both can work in. But I think the street approach for me has worked for me because I'm not that musically technical. So if it sounds right and it feels good in my heart, I usually roll with that. Okay. And that's what governs my work, my production.
Now it's interesting that you brought up hip hop because I want to talk about the influence of urban music in the Bahamas and how that has changed what is now deemed or seen as Bahamian or accepted.
Hip hop, even in my DJ days, hip hop has been popular in the Bahamas. People around first of all, I remember when I first started playing Rapper's Delight and some of the music from like Two Live Crew and stuff. Most of the lyrics weren't really that acceptable. My mother couldn't sit down with me and listen to those tunes, but it was really, really like an underground kind of thing here in the Bahamas. A lot of the young people, at least when I was 18, 19, it was more of an underground thing. It was like how you couldn't play reggae on ZNS because ZNS was the only station. So if you had a hip hop track, the young people kind of kept that to themselves. It wasn't really in the mainstream musically. It's only since when I remember when 100 Jams came around and we had a new government, things were more free. And I think because of that, hip hop and reggae, they were kind of stunted in their growth in our culture because they weren't really out where everyone could listen to them. Only the people who wanted to listen to hip hop would go and seek hip hop, go and put it on a cassette and play it, and they would play it privately. I think most times, but it wouldn't be out on the radio or people flaunting. Oh, I'm listening to Two Live this or whoever. It wasn't like that. It was very it was an underground kind of thing.
I'm not one of those persons that say you have to do it this way or it must be this way in order for it to be what it is. I believe in being free flowing, being an artist, putting new things together, creating the next step. There's no rule for me, so I would mix in soca with Junkanoo, or I would even mix in techno or dance with the Junkanoo.
Mm.
Or I would just sit, right here and come up with some sound from a feeling that I have, because I am a cultural product of the Bahamas. So what I have in me, my exposure to a lot of Bahamian music gives me a natural knack for it. Now, we have artists that are exposed to a lot of different things. So what comes out of them is pretty much what they got from what they were exposed to.
So, do you consider yourself a Bahamian artist in the truest form?
In the truest form?
Yeah, because you say that, you're a cultural product of the Bahamas, so then your music in itself. Do you consider yourself a Bahamian artist, or do you consider yourself an artist first and a Bahamian second?
I'm an artist first.
Okay.
And a Bahamian first.
I have yet to see any of these people who put in the music out there prove to me that any of that music has become successful. Zilch, zero, duck, egg. We have been fortunate, and we've had the Who Let the Dogs Out, which is not Bahamian music. It's done by a Bahamian group, but it's not Bahamian music. How many of these other persons, I don't know who we've interviewed so far, have been successful in getting their music anywhere worthwhile to this very day? So if we still fighting that whole, see, America has 9 zillion people trying to get into that same hip hop market. Why do you think the American public is going to accept me, a fake American, over the true people? I don't understand why we haven't gotten that yet. Island sells, my sister. Island sells. The worst dialect and the true rhythms of the island. All that's what worked for Bob Marley. For God's sake, I mean, the man didn't water down his accent in his interviews. You either understand or you ask him to say it again. Why should I change me for them? Maybe now's the time you need to accept, what, we have Rake and Scrape. Let's understand the foundation of it. Let's not try to fake it out by sticking a bell in a hip-hop song while the foundation is still hip-hop. The foundation should be Junkanoo or Rake and Scrape, and you put the hip-hop on top of that. But when you flip it, then you become what they are. And until we understand that, we're not going anywhere. No one, to this, as far as I know, have really broken into that market.
You bleeding, you are the heathen, the snake from Eden. You are misleading, siblings and seedling.
So I'm about to get my shit down. I love money and money just like Ditto. So every time it pop up and catch it with no middle.
He was pretty interesting.
My whole outlook on music was different. You know what I mean? My mother listened to like U2, and she was a very big fan of Janis Joplin. I grew up on classical music, the Chopins and Beethoven, and I also grew up with Bob Marley, Al Green, the Supremes, Diana Ross, I can go on and on, man. But the music I grew up in my household always varied, because having a black father and a white mother, man, you have no idea. Like on a Saturday, my father want to listen to Motown, you know what I mean, and then on a Sunday, my mother want to listen to some Patsy Cline or something like that, so I definitely have a different outlook on what I hear as music, in my opinion.
Well, let me just say, I always loved the music, no matter what type of music it was, The music is something that no matter, what you're really interested in, anything you listen to long enough, you would learn to love. So I was always into music, but of course, breakdance and all that stuff like that got me into rap music, hip-hop, and that's how I basically got into hip-hop, listening to the Roxanne battles and all the things, UTFO versus Roxanne, all the stuff like that, Sparky D, and people back in the day. And I always was interested in, the clashing element of it, the battles and stuff like that. That's the thing that really piqued my interest in hip-hop. And I was like, man, I could flip words like this, I could do this, I could do that. And that's how I basically got into it. It was a lot of fun.
My goodness. I started off rapping, Right.
And
Hip hop.
why rapping in 1995?
Well, in 1995, that's the music that I was heavily influenced by. And here again, it's like what I'm saying. No one handed down the history of Rake and Scrape, of what they call our music. No one was making it cool to be a Rake and Scrape artist. When you look at these artists, they are on the big chain and the things that you really wanted to be when you come out of school, you know what I mean? These things you wanted to be like. And, you know, there was no history there as far as I could have seen. You know, when I could see the Rake and Scrape artists and then they was living a regular life like my mommy and daddy, I can't see no one who say they joined the entertainment world and wanted to be regular. If you wanted to be regular, you need to go get a 9 to 5.
Yeah. It's a Bahamian who produced it.
Okay.
It doesn't make Bahamian music. I mean, come on. If a Jamaican makes boiled fish and Johnny Cake, does that make him a Bahamian?
No, not
okay. So where we at?
So you're likening creativity to food.
It's all about it because now we're trying to discover what makes this thing what it is.
Okay.
Now that's what I'm trying to define for you, to show you what makes this thing what it is.
So Johnny Camp is a Bahamian that happened to make a pop record.
You just said it.
Lenny Kravitz is a Bahamian that make rock records.
You just said it.
But he's not. That's not Bahamian.
He's a Bahamian.
So should we play him on the radio?
You just said what it was, though.
No, but my question is, do you play that person on the radio?
Of course.
In the Bahamian in a Bahamian segment?
Of course, you play it. You play it. I mean, I don't have nothing against the guys doing rap, and I love all of this stuff. I love the music that's coming.
And you do produce some of these people.
all the different genres and all some of these persons. I have nothing against that particular thing now, but when it comes down to let's stand up for who we are, and because we got to be careful because we don't want to lose. Also, we don't want to lose our identity.
So how do you remain true to your identity, but do, I guess, what it is that you are comfortable with or good at?
I would say, and I understand too why these younger cats would want to more draw to rap music and would more want to draw to other music. It's because of the world standard. It's the world industry. It's the world thing. It's looking at the bling blings.
Well, have you found any Bahamian music, traditional Bahamian music, that has been profitable?
Have I found any Bahamian music that has been profitable?
Like, can you go out there and look on the BDSs and the sound scans and find a Bahamian record that is sold as much as an Eminem or?
No.
Okay.
No.
Stop digging in your bungie. Yeah, you one comfort job, but you bring all your boys, and they smell like bacteria in the stink.
You know, by the time as we find out, or by the time as we want to find out what's going on, it is so far gone till we believe that we are ahead of it, but we so far in the back we can't see how far it already left us.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the Bahamian music industry, or the lack thereof.
Right.
Tell me, in your opinion, do we have a Bahamian music industry, and if so, how effective is it?
I would love to answer that, but I can't. But now I'll tell you the reason why. I don't check. And I do not check because, you know, when you reach a certain point, because you've done fight years to get to this point, you're not trying to get back. As a matter of fact, that's so me calling me now. You know, you're not trying to get back to where you started. You're trying to get so far ahead.
Bahamians have a tendency not to recognize you until the rest of the world recognizes you. It's kind of bad, and it's a real struggle. And when I first came back home from the States, I honestly thought that my music dreams were gone.
The most important one is the fact that if there is to be any show, whereas there's a foreign act or headliner, then it must be opened by a Bahamian act or performer, entertainer. When you have your local shows, that happens. I must say that it does. And to my knowledge, there aren't that many international entertainers coming to any of the other resorts other than the Atlantis. And their headline shows, I can say that they don't have Bahamian openers, but I think...
Are they not governed by the same rules in Nassau or the Bahamas because they are on their own secluded island?
No, they're governed by the same law, but I think what they do to, I guess, offset it is say that they have Bahamian acts all over the property. You see, so that's how they get around it. I really don't think that's
fair.
It's not sufficient.
Okay.
It's not sufficient because, like I say, the Bahamian band that was paid the most and properly was Bahamian, and after that, it's just been, we will pay you this.
All different kettle of fish, and we're still in our embryonic stages of trying to get the actual industry, because a lot of people don't, and when I say people, I mean people in the industry, and the large majority of them outside of the industry don't really understand the whole concept of intellectual property and performance rights and all that type of stuff, you know, having to license music to play it publicly, that type of stuff. We're still, as a people, getting to the stage where the education needs to be increased. The sensitivity has to be, the sensitization has to be increased in order to get people to understand. Just like how I can go into somebody's yard and take their mango off of their tree without their permission. People got to understand it's the same. You can't take my song and record it and put it on a CD and sell it to somebody. That's the same type of stealing.
We just don't support each other.
The thing, you know, I felt even when I first started working with music, Bahamians in general, for some reason, they didn't appreciate themselves. I remember this gentleman called KB, and I thought like he broke the ice when he came up with the song called She Fat. There's a gentleman called Fred Ferguson, and a gentleman, I remember Mark Johnson, they had just bought a reel-to-reel. It was a multi-track, and they got a studio together, and I think maybe because KB, the song was something relevant, something that people could relate to, they got excited about it, and I think like that actually broke the ice for Bahamians to actually appreciate what they call Bahamian music. I actually hate the term Bahamian music. I think it's so silly when I hear people say Bahamian music, because you don't go into a country and say, can I hear some American music? You know, you call it by what the name is. I want to hear hip hop. I want to hear some R&B. You know, we need to have the culture is so eroded that people don't even know, in the Bahamas, they don't even know what it is. You know, if you love Bahamian music, call it by its name. I want to hear some Rake and Scrape. You know, let me hear some John Canoe. There was a sound that being developed called Goombay. People don't even know what that is, but it's because there's not enough of it. And also, I also think that as far as the musicianship in the country, you know, there's only a few musicians around. There's not a whole lot, and I think because we don't actually have, you know, bands in schools anymore. That it kind of stunted the musical growth of the population. People just don't. Because it's only a few guys doing things, and then also that's I think it actually hurt the sound of Rake and Scrape. The sound, you know, there's not a way for it to really evolve, because there's not people really experimenting with it and having fun with it. It's just this one sound, it's just, to me, it's the one sound, just with a different melody. It hasn't grown. I've actually, in some of my productions, I've always tried to go against the grain. I do believe that there is something authentic and something nice about like the Junkanoo beat, the rhythmic part of it. It's nothing like anything else in the world. And I think it could be consumed worldwide. It just needs to be presented in the right way. I've actually been going after that. I don't know if I have the exact recipe, but who knows? The thing is, you want to do things that make you happy first, and hope that somebody else likes it.
We do not have that central body that we can go to that will make sure that these things, the standards are kept, and that we don't put stuff out that go against, whatever the program. But we don't have a set program, and our leaders, our government leaders need to step forward very quickly, and like I said earlier, make a clear determination.
From the digital evolution of the Bahamian music culture, it's in good hands. There's a lot of people who are doing really great things that should have been done a long time ago, but the past is the past. You can't do anything about that but stir it up and make sure to reflect on the positive parts and accentuate those, and look at the negative parts and make sure that you don't repeat those.
Okay.
And so, and I think that's what's going on with a lot of the wise and astute young Bahamians who are actually have their hands on the wheel. They're making sure that positive things are being done and representing the Bahamian culture in a really, really positive way.
I don't know, man. If you're talking about having a culture shock, then you're probably gonna talk to me, because you know what I mean. I see things differently, and Bahamian music, I think, done by Bahamian artists, with a Bahamian story. You know what I mean? Bahamian background, Bahamian culture involved in the music. It doesn't have to be Rake and Scrape. It can be hip hop. It can be pop music. It can be country. It can be music. Period. I mean, are these critics going to sit down and tell me when I put together a classical piece of Ronnie Butler that it's not Bahamian music because it's classical? That's unheard of. That's weird. You guys are weird for even thinking like that. You know what I mean? So, like, we have to stop being so small-minded. You know what I mean? About how over proud we are as Bahamians, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love where I come from. I love my country, you know what I mean? And I'm a proud Bahamian. However, I do think that we tend to down everything that we're afraid of, that we don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, there hasn't been a Bahamian that really, truly, you can say Bahamian has done some things. They won a Grammy. That wasn't music to me written by Bahamians, right? Because there was the song, for one, Who Let the Dogs Out was not a Bahamian song, you know what I mean? And furthermore, it was a pop remix. So are they considered Bahamian artists? Or is that considered Bahamian music because it was done that way? It should be. You know what I mean? Those dudes are Bahamian. You know what I mean? But, at the end of the day, I think it can make money, and I definitely have put all of my eggs into that basket, and I'm gonna keep doing it until I've accomplished that.
No, the lack of what some of them do, how they go about doing it, is what hold them back. The talent is there now. They're not short of talent. What they short of is, hey, man, I am used to doing it this way. Let me try spice it up with this, that, and that. But do not go 100% of how America would do it. Do not go 100%. Now, you find your niche. But my advice is, do not go 100% the way America will do it. Because once you go 100% the way America does it, you must remember, you don't count nowhere in this equation. Why? Because for what you're doing, America can buy a dime a million. Not dime a dozen, dime a million, because what you're doing the same thing what they're doing. It's just like, okay, we have sand on our beaches. We're not going to America to buy sand.
No, not at all. So you're saying that you can't duplicate what's being done because there are a million people doing that. So you have to bring something. You have to bring something different.
Create. I'm not saying not to take piece of this or piece of that. No, do that, because if you want if you want radio play in the U.S. somehow you're gonna have to use this and use that. But all I'm simply saying is don't go overboard whereby you lost your identity and now you have no identity at all.
That's the music with helping these young dudes go pick up these guns and
have
these young ladies thinking they strippers because bands is make them dance and you understand what they saying? The music, the content of the music right now, trust me, we on a downward slope. Like the slope's so slippery until you can fall off. The youths don't have anything to hold on to because they don't know anything about their culture. They too busy getting like Don say, bombarded with other people culture until they themselves believe that, hey, it's acceptable to be a Bahamian and walk around like we live somewhere else or something. No, don't wait like that.
Well, I don't know, most of like Bahamian artists, the majority of them, they really feel like they have to sound like foreign to be loved or liked by Bahamians or heard by Bahamians, you know? And if that's what it takes for us to be heard, my boy them to be heard, but trust me, you ain't gonna get that from us.
So that is a part of a forward motion, as a forward propulsion. Instead of us doing all this arguing all the time about what is this and what ain't that, why don't let's get together and try find some methods and some ways where we can make things happen. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about stop all this bickering and this rowing, and let's put our shoulders to the wheel and make things
Rowing?
happen.
What is that?
Rowing, making noise. Disagreeing all the time, and always it's the same subject and what comes out of it for years. There will always be this argument of what is Bahamian.
Package and market the Bahamian sound without diluting your culture.
I'd say that you can't. You have to dilute it a bit to become international status. Like, I'm sure reggae, the marketable reggae isn't, well, we know, isn't like the real reggae that's in Jamaica. I'm sure it's Americanized to a point. It's diluted just a little for people of all cultures and genres to understand and accept and like.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So do you think that Bahamian music in its indigenous form would actually or ever be accepted on a global and international scale?
No.
Everybody basically feels the same way. We don't support each other in no sense of the word. None. And it's not something that we just now started doing. It's been going on for, so to speak, years. Like, I feel like in the States or the US or Europe or wherever it is, they're not ashamed to give another artist respect, or they're not ashamed to give their fellow man respect, or to say, well, you know, good job, or you did this well, or, you know, how'd you do this, or come up to you and ask you for tips, or, you know, when are you doing your next thing, or whatever. But in the Bahamas, like, we're prideful people, and for good reason, but also for a lot of bad. And that's one of the reasons it comes into, I guess, bad comes into play. And we just don't show each other respect, because we consider, you know, giving you respect for something you're doing, or coming up to you, or any kind of whatever like that, considered like in mine. You know what I'm saying? So you don't get the respect that you feel like you deserve from nobody, because nobody is going to, so to speak, lower themselves to come to you to either ask for help, to show appreciation, to have to show you respect. None of the whole 9 yards. You're not gonna get it. Not from a Bahamian. We totally use our pride for the wrong thing. So if you can't necessarily corner and do what you're supposed to do in your own backyard, which is the Bahamas, how do we expect to really jump out into the international world, or even want to jump on the international stage or scale or whatever it is, when the people from your own hometown don't fully push you or fully, I guess, support you?